after seeing the writing of SLO and SLI, let us see the SLA. So as you all know, an SLA is a business contract between the provider and the customer. The SLA stipulates that a penalty will apply to the provider if the service does not maintain certain availability and or performance thresholds. Okay, so that is what the SLA gives you, the commitment of providers towards the customer's requirement. If the SLA is broken, the customer will receive compensation from the provider. So please be aware while putting an agreement and by mentioning the key factors in that agreement. So please to mention only whatever you can provide for the customer, that alone can be given in an agreement. So agreement is not a story book of saying all your achievements. Okay, so it should be very specific, and whatever you can give, that alone will be given in an agreement. Not all services have an SLA, but all services should have an objective, SLO. Your SLO thresholds should be stricter than your SLA. And so let us see one small example. This is like HTTP GET, which is nothing but the end-to-end latency of the successful HTTP responses. Okay, so for this case, so what is a key performance indicator for this case? This case is the latency. Latency is a key performance indicator. Okay, for a HTTP GET. Okay, for that the agreement would be the latency should not be over 300 milliseconds. Okay, this is what the agreement I am providing to the customer. My latency should not be over 300 milliseconds. If so, then what would be my objective? I have to strive, I have to work hard to make my latency less than or equivalent to 200 milliseconds. Okay, so it should not go over 200 milliseconds. If I've set that objective was it should not go over 200 milliseconds, then I'll be in a safer side to abide in the agreement, because agreement is not over 300 milliseconds. Okay, so for that case, the SLI should be the latency of successful HTTP responses is HTTP 200 milliseconds. Okay, so this is my SLI. SLI is the latency of successful HTTP response. Okay, all successful HTTP response is not going beyond, and it is up to 200 milliseconds. Okay, so that is what my SLI is. Now what would be my SLO? The latency of 99% of the responses must be less than or equivalent to 200 milliseconds. This is my objective. So I am just working towards my objective. Okay, so after knowing my objective, now it is safer to set an agreement. So what my agreement tells, the user is compensated if the 99th percentile latency exceeds 300 milliseconds, because I am working towards the 200 milliseconds. So and hence I am saying the customer, those who are accessing my services, they may not feel the latency over 300 milliseconds. Okay, so that is what the SLA is. SLA should always be higher than the SLO. Okay, so whatever you can achievable, that you have to measure in SLO, and then after seeing your achievable target, you have to set your SLAs. So that's it, students. So we saw today this session is purely on basis of SLA, very interesting agreement. You might have wondered why such importance is given in SLA. SLA is making your service popularized among your customer. Okay, so think about it. That's it. We are ending this module. The first and previous classes we have seen the identity access management, that how to set the roles and responsibility in the hierarchy of the resources, right? We have also seen one example, don't forget about it. And then what is the need of monitoring your service? Think about it. The outcome of monitoring is billing. Okay, so once if you are monitored, once if the provider can monitor the resources, then only they can make that resources in the accountable format. Okay, and in this session we have seen much more about the service level agreement.